War has changed over centuries, but power hasn't. Every conflict, public or silent, follows the same ancient laws. Sun Tzu didn't write a book for generals. He wrote a manual for anyone who wants to win without wasting strength, without showing vulnerability, and without stepping into a battle unprepared. This is the art of war, stripped down, decoded, and transformed into strategy you can feel, understand, and use. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Laying Plans. Every conflict begins long before the first blow is struck, and Sun Tzu makes that painfully clear. The real battle is won in the shadows, in the silent hours of calculation while others are distracted by noise. He studies things people don't even notice: shifts in morale, changes in environment, the character of a leader, the rhythm of a group, the weaknesses hidden in plain sight. When these forces line up just right, victory becomes less of a challenge and more of a consequence. But his true weapon is deception. Sun Tzu doesn't treat deception as a tactic, he treats it as a foundation. Let the world misread you. Show confidence when you're struggling. Show vulnerability when you hold power. Make people comfortable when they should be cautious, and cautious when they should be calm. A person who sees the wrong picture reacts the wrong way, and once their reactions are misaligned, the outcome is already yours. Everything around you is perception-driven. People don't respond to your reality. They respond to what they think your reality is. So if you control what they think, you control the sequence that follows. Sun Tzu's opening chapter is a quiet threat. The one who shapes perception shapes destiny. To summarize: calculate deeper, mislead effortlessly, and set the stage so the ending is predetermined before the story begins. Chapter 2: Waging War. Sun Tzu moves immediately into the cost of conflict. His warning is simple: the longer a battle drags, the more it destroys the one fighting it. Time drains strength. Delay drains clarity. Prolonged struggle drains willpower. Victory is not just about force, it's about efficiency. He pushes for precision instead of chaos, clarity instead of drama. A decisive strike saves energy, resources, and reputation. Hesitation, on the other hand, feeds the enemy more than it feeds you. Sun Tzu even suggests using the enemy's own momentum and miscalculations as fuel, a subtle humiliation where your opponent ends up supplying the tools of their own defeat. The deeper meaning here is harsh. Struggles aren't lost because someone was weaker, but because they stayed longer than they should have. The ones who learn to end things early, directly, cleanly, boldly, preserve their strength for battles that actually matter. To summarize: move with speed, strike with purpose, and let your opponent carry the weight of the conflict instead of you. Chapter 3: Attack by Strategy. Here, Sun Tzu reveals the true art of dominance. He calls physical confrontation the lowest form of victory. If swords are drawn, someone misread the situation earlier. The real masters are the ones who win without lifting their hand, the ones who dissolve the enemy's stability from within. He teaches you to dismantle plans before they take shape, to fracture alliances quietly, to inject uncertainty into the enemy's confidence. Once doubt enters their mind, it spreads like a crack through glass. People who question their own direction begin making mistakes you never even asked them to make. They hesitate when they should act, they act when they should wait, and slowly their entire structure collapses under the pressure of their own confusion. You don't overpower such an enemy, you let them unravel. You place subtle obstacles, distort small details, shift their expectations, and let the force of their own imbalance finish the job. By the time they realize what's happening, their strategy has already turned to dust. To summarize: break certainty, break unity, break clarity, and the battle ends before the first move is made. Chapter 4: Tactical Dispositions. Sun Tzu now shifts from breaking the enemy to strengthening yourself. He says the greatest fighters don't seek glory in battle, they seek certainty. They prepare so thoroughly, so quietly, so intelligently, that losing becomes impossible long before winning becomes necessary. A commander who fortifies his position, studies the terrain, understands his forces, and eliminates his weaknesses stands in a place the enemy cannot reach. The genius of this chapter lies in how invisibly he frames victory. You don't boast about preparation. You don't broadcast your work. You become a fortress disguised as a shadow. And when the time comes to strike, your victory feels effortless. People call you lucky, gifted, unusually calm, but it's not luck. It's the kind of preparation that others were too distracted, too arrogant, or too emotional to do. There's a quiet power in being unshakable. When you can absorb hits without breaking, when your foundation is too solid to collapse, the enemy eventually collapses under the weight of their own miscalculations. To summarize, strengthen your position until defeat is impossible, then strike only when success is guaranteed. Chapter 5: Energy. Here Sun Tzu explains that battles are not won through force alone, but through the manipulation of momentum. He speaks of direct force and indirect force. Direct force is the obvious blow, the punch everyone sees coming. Indirect force, however, is the setup, the orchestration, the invisible shaping of conditions that make the final strike devastating. He teaches that momentum multiplies power. A well-timed move is worth far more than brute strength. You draw the enemy out with bait, not confrontation. You make them move first, reveal themselves first, commit first. And once they do, their path becomes predictable. Their openings reveal themselves. Their energy becomes yours to harvest. Desire is the easiest bait to offer. Opportunity, praise, advantage, recognition. Most people move toward what they want without noticing who is guiding their steps. And once someone commits to a direction, changing course becomes difficult. Momentum becomes a trap. Sun Tzu shows that the most dangerous fighters are the ones who let their opponents choose the path, unaware that every choice leads to the same destination. To summarize, shape momentum, lure commitment, and strike when the enemy's own movement carries them into your hands. Chapter 6: Weak and Strong Points. This chapter reveals one of Sun Tzu's sharpest insights. Strength is rarely where it appears, and weakness is rarely where it's shown. The enemy's true vulnerabilities are never obvious. They're hidden behind noise, pride, routine, or apparent stability. Your task is to recognize openings others overlook. Sun Tzu says you must be like water, never attacking resistance head-on, always flowing around it. Always finding the cracks. You choose when, where, and how the engagement happens. You force the enemy to guard everything while you strike only one spot. You stay unpredictable, for predictability is the birthplace of defeat. The darkest brilliance here is understanding that people expose their weaknesses without realizing it. A habit repeated too long, a fear disguised as anger, a boundary defended too fiercely, a silence held too tightly. These reveal more than any confession. You strike not where they stand strong, but where they silently hope you won't look. To summarize, avoid strength, exploit hidden weaknesses, and control the battlefield through adaptability. Chapter 7: Maneuvering. Maneuvering is not about movement, it is about psychological endurance. Sun Tzu describes the fatigue, the confusion, the chaos that comes from shifting positions. Armies exhaust themselves long before they collide, and the one who breaks first is rarely the one who is hit hardest, but the one who spent their strength too early. Sun Tzu emphasizes patience, not passive patience but strategic patience. You conserve energy while the enemy wastes theirs. Let them rush, defend, overreact, and overextend. Let them burn fuel proving something unnecessary. You move only when the move matters. When the opponent becomes tired, frustrated, or scattered, that is when your strike becomes unstoppable. The mind breaks before the body does, and exhaustion is the quietest weapon in warfare. To summarize, save your strength, drain the enemy, and strike when their exhaustion reshapes the battle in your favor. Chapter 8: Variation in Tactics. No rule survives every situation. Sun Tzu warns that the general who clings to a single strategy becomes predictable, and predictability is fatal. Conditions change. People change. Opportunities appear and vanish. Rigidity breeds defeat. He also identifies 5 fatal flaws that destroy leaders: recklessness, fear, impatience, pride, and misplaced kindness. Each one is a door through which disaster enters. A reckless person dies early. A fearful person dies slowly. The impatient crumble under pressure. Pride blinds the mind, and excessive kindness becomes a weakness others can exploit. Adaptation, therefore, becomes the heart of victory. You shift tactics not randomly but with purpose. You become unreadable. You let no one anticipate your rhythm, your responses, your intentions. When others cannot predict your next move, they cannot prepare for it. To summarize, stay flexible, remain unreadable, and eliminate the flaws within yourself before facing others. Chapter 9: The Army on the March. Sun Tzu teaches that the battlefield always speaks. Dust patterns, bird movements, sudden silences, unexplained noise, they all reveal truths the enemy never meant to show. He reads the world the way others read scrolls. Nothing is random. Everything is a signal. And people aren't any different. Their tone, timing, pauses, sudden politeness, sudden arrogance, shifts in routine, changes in mood, each one is a silent message. A person doesn't betray you when they act differently. They betray you when they act almost the same but with a few details missing. A late reply, a forced smile, a shorter conversation. Subtle changes always reveal internal shifts. Sun Tzu's brilliance is not in watching people, it's in decoding them. When someone becomes strangely quiet, it's not peace. Something is forming. When someone becomes louder than usual, something is breaking. When someone moves differently, a decision has already been made. Once you learn to read subtle signs, you stop reacting. You start predicting. And the one who predicts controls the outcome long before the first move is made. To summarize, observe deeply. Patterns reveal truth long before words do. Chapter 10: Terrain. Sun Tzu explains that terrain shapes behavior. High ground, narrow paths, open spaces, enclosed areas. Each determines how an army moves, thinks, and reacts. The wise general studies terrain not as land but as leverage. And the same applies everywhere else. Environments shape people. Some spaces make you strong, others make you hesitant. Some groups sharpen your mind, others dull your instinct. The terrain you choose, your environment, your team, your surroundings, can create advantages or destroy them. Sun Tzu's message is subtle. You don't fight battles in places that weaken you. You pick ground where your strengths rise effortlessly and the enemy's strengths shrink. To summarize, choose environments that empower your strengths and minimize your vulnerabilities. Chapter 11: The 9 Situations. This chapter explores how humans transform under pressure. Sun Tzu lists 9 types of battlefield positions, from comfortable ground to desperate ground, each one altering morale and decision-making. But the darkest insight here is about desperate ground, situations where escape is impossible. Sun Tzu believes people become their most fearless, most resourceful, most united when the only way out is through. When retreat disappears, hesitation dies with it. Pressure doesn't weaken people, it reveals what they truly are. Remove the safety net, and survival turns ordinary individuals into unstoppable forces. To summarize, situations shape human nature. Desperation often produces extraordinary strength. Chapter 12: Attack by Fire. Fire is chaos made visible. Sun Tzu warns that powerful attacks, like fire, must be used only under perfect conditions. When the wind, timing, and situation align, fire becomes unstoppable. Used poorly, it backfires. This applies to all explosive actions, confrontations, exposures, bold decisions. You don't unleash them when emotions are high. You unleash them when conditions guarantee control. Precision makes destruction effective. Impulse makes destruction self-inflicted. Sun Tzu's lesson is simple. Powerful tools must be used rarely, intentionally, and only when the outcome is in your hands. To summarize, use overwhelming force only when timing and advantage align perfectly. Chapter 13. The use of spies. Sun Tzu ends with the most unsettling truth. Knowledge decides every outcome. Armies, weapons, numbers. None matter if one side knows everything and the other side knows nothing. Information is the ultimate weapon. It reveals intentions, exposes weaknesses, predicts movements, and wins wars before they begin. The general who gathers information silently holds the world in his hands. Sun Tzu advises using spies of every type. Those inside, those outside, those converted, those expendable, and those who return alive with secrets. Through them, uncertainty disappears. This idea is not limited to espionage. It's about understanding people beyond their words, observing their patterns, their motives, their fears. When you know what others want, what they hide, what they avoid, and what they hope for, you gain control over every interaction without ever raising your voice. Sun Tzu closes his masterpiece here because everything leads to this. The side that knows more needs less strength. To summarize, information is power. The one who sees the unseen controls the inevitable. Sun Tzu's wisdom doesn't age because human nature doesn't change. Every plan, every move, every victory still follows the same laws he uncovered centuries ago. The ones who observe win. The ones who adapt rise. And the ones who understand people deeper than people understand themselves dominate without ever being seen. This was the art of war, not just explained but awakened.